The views and opinions expressed in InTouch are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official party or position of Backyard Broadcasting. Any content provided by our guests are of their opinion, and they are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything. Good morning and welcome to InTouch, a Sunday morning public affairs show dedicated to the health and welfare of the Susquehanna Valley residents. I'm your host, Joie Michaels. Join us at this time as we interview difference makers in the community who want to make the Susquehanna Valley a better place. This morning we're talking with Chris Smith. She is part of a group called Let's End COVID! They're a group of concerned people from Northeast PA working to overcome the COVID pandemic through education, information, and support for vaccinations. The group joins me to talk about COVID, the disease, and vaccinations. The entire group is here, and I am so excited to talk with them. Let's turn to our interview with Chris and the group from Let's End COVID! On InTouch, a service of Backyard Broadcasting.
Well, hi, I'm Chris Smith. I'm here today on behalf of Let's End COVID. We are a group of concerned people in North Central PA, and we are working to overcome the COVID pandemic through education, outreach, and mitigation. Our group, Let's End COVID with an exclamation point, we actually started in early January when three of us started the conversation about what could be done to end COVID in Lycoming County. And we started by identifying the gaps. There was so much misinformation and not enough information about COVID, and also questions about the vaccine. We had the rumor mill going, then there was also questions about availability, who should get it, how to reach those people. And so we began by identifying people who we thought could add to this discussion and help us reach the community. For example, our members include representation from the medical, pharmaceutical, public education, media, human services, education, business, faith, and public service communities. And we are a group of working and retired professionals who represent those services that we think would be helpful to reach and Let's End COVID in Lycoming County. One of the first achievements was through the support of Laura Jansen, who's also a member of our group, and she provided us the opportunity to write op-eds weekly for the highest reaching edition of the Williamsport Sun-Gazette. So these articles are also, through her support, being distributed to the East Lycoming Shopper, the Muncie Luminary, the Lock Haven Express, and we also have outreach to some other media outlets for these articles as well. To date, we've developed about a dozen of these op-eds. We also have several more in the wings, but they have been running weekly in the Saturday edition of the Williamsport Sun-Gazette. And the topics for these op-eds were identified as those that would address timely COVID topics and concerns. For example, there was a lot of misinformation about how the virus actually spreads, why you can't be close to your family now before the vaccine, why you needed to wear a mask, when you needed to wear a mask, how you needed to wear your mask, so anything, and questions about the vaccine itself. So additionally, the Sun-Gazette also, through the Lycoming County Health Improvement Coalition, is now featuring weekly a list of the locations that are providing the vaccine. And also what's great is they have phone numbers because a lot of the older adult community isn't familiar with websites and social media. Currently, we're also conducting a pilot project with Montgomery Pharmacy and TJ's Market in Hughesville. And we just dropped off some more material for them, but they're going to be distributing about 3,000 flyers to their customers who come to the pharmacy and to the market. And we've also accomplished a lot in the last couple of months since we organized. We have billboards up now through the cooperation of our Public Education Committee and signage. We, of course, have done a lot. Our biggest achievement right now is being on InTouch, and we really appreciate this opportunity to reach the community about our group, Let's End COVID. I think one of the best things I heard was one of our members said, "I'm excited to work with this group of people because unlike a lot of groups, you get things done. And when we look back at what we've accomplished in the 3 months that we've been together, we really have achieved so much to get the word out. And our goal is to Let's End COVID."
We have seen major shifts in the number of cases and who those cases are among. So, for example, among people who are residents of nursing homes and healthcare workers, who were initially people that were very seriously affected with high degrees of illness and sadly often many deaths. Those people now having been all vaccinated, the cases are markedly decreased among those individuals, thankfully. And the best part of it is that now these vaccines have been rolled out to many Americans, and as of April 19th, all Americans will be able to schedule their immunizations against COVID. The goal is that by mid to late May, early June, everybody will have had one dose, and by the end of June, going into the July 4th holiday, most Americans who want the vaccines will be fully immunized against COVID, which is a tremendous accomplishment.
And just as we're talking about vaccination, I want people to think it's after you're fully vaccinated, that doesn't mean that you can take off your mask and you can stop social distancing. Vaccinations, being fully vaccinated means not that you can't get COVID, but that if you do get it, it's going to be less severe. It also doesn't mean that you can't transmit COVID. Because you can still do that. So you need to take those precautions.
How long do these shots last? I mean, will I get now that I had my shots, I got 2 of them, am I done forever, or do I have to revisit it, kind of like the flu shot? How long are they good for? Do we know?
This is Ross again. That we can't know yet how long our immunity will last from a vaccination because the vaccines are very new. But we know that even if you've had COVID, you're recommended to get vaccinated. After that, talk to your doctor first. You might want to wait a little bit until you feel better from your COVID infection. But it's generally thought that your odds are a lot better not getting COVID again or one of the new variants that's coming around if you get vaccinated. So how long will they last? We're hoping for maybe a year, but we don't know if we'll need boosters every year or, whether the vaccine will stay out there and then keep changing the way the flu does. They have to come up with a different flu vaccine every year. So it's a good question. We don't know how long your immunity will last once we are vaccinated. We know it'll be months, hopefully at least a year. We just don't know, maybe longer.
And as Ross said, this is all being studied and researched. Some of the latest information that I've seen in that regard is that at least for people vaccinated early in the clinical trials and then early when it was released to the public, folks are seeing at least 6 months of immunity against the COVID virus. And as somebody mentioned earlier, it's really striking. You have protection, almost 100% protection with all 3 of these vaccines against getting sick enough with COVID to end up in a hospital, in an ICU, and obviously not to die from that disease. That's remarkable for any vaccine.
So when you get a vaccine, you're not getting COVID in any form at all. You're just getting a small thing that's on the outside of COVID. There's no way you can catch COVID from the vaccine.
This is Mike, trusting science. That is so important. And for some reason, there's a lot of mistrust of science. I think one reason for that is that politicians have interfered and tried to make science say what they want it to say instead of what is actually true. Several years ago, I went to one of the science marches in Washington, and several people were carrying signs that I could absolutely agree to. If it weren't for science, I wouldn't be here. And that's true of many of us. We've had some disease, we needed surgery. Science is what made all those things possible. And, I think we really need to restore trust in the experts who know what they're doing, who have worked hard to get to that point, and who are able and willing and ready to take care of us when we need it.
That leads me to another quick question. I do. I knew this was going to be exciting because I'm coming up with more questions. I want to get the shot, but I'm concerned I'm going to get sick. What do you? I mean, I'm assuming it works different on everybody.
And it is true that when you get a vaccination for COVID, you probably aren't going to feel great the next day. In fact, you may not be able to do a day's work. But it's really important to understand, as I explained, this shot isn't COVID. You aren't getting an infection. You can't transmit it. Your body's simply reacting to the messenger RNA that has been presented to it, so that it can learn how to block the spike virus of COVID if it comes your way. Now, there are normal side effects to getting the shot. And as you said, it's interesting that some people who've had COVID, maybe because they have the antibodies, react more strongly to the first vaccine dose than the second. A lot of people, the reverse. For me, I've had both. I had a little bit of a sore arm and nothing more. My wife, Barbara, who's been speaking here, got was the second dose that she had a fever. She was in bed for 6-8 hours the day after, and then she was okay again. So the side effects go away within a day or so. Remember, COVID's not like that. It's a slow mover. It incubate, at least with the old original COVID, was 6 to 10 days incubation after you've been exposed. And we know that the people who get hospitalized can be in there, if they survive, for weeks. And then there's the long haul COVID. Some people have had COVID and they still have symptoms after 6 weeks, and they would be the same things that we associate with the reaction to the shot itself: fatigue, shortness of breath, fatigue, chest pain, loss of or altered taste and smell, and joint pain. These are all things that go with COVID itself, and we don't know if they could be for the rest of their life. We don't know yet because it's so new, but these are all things that are improved if you get vaccinated. There are now some studies that are showing that people who had COVID, who finally got vaccinated, their long-term symptoms really improved a lot because they got vaccinated. So that's really good to know. The average reactions, you might feel very tired the next day. In fact, too sleepy to drive for somebody I talked to. Muscle pain, chills, and a significant fever. Enough that you can get up the next day and say, "Oh, I feel like myself again."
We're all different. If we have underlying conditions,
Economy.
Schedule your first vaccine and go and get it. If you're getting one that takes 2 shots, they will automatically schedule the second one for you. So you don't have to worry about doing that process again. You get that scheduled for you. So once you bite the bullet and do that first one, you're good.
And what about if someone...
Because it's there you go. Because it is not just any one race. It is not just our town against your town. We're a species that is trying to survive. And I think it's better now than any other time that we are starting to get together and say, let's do this as a team. Literally, Team Human. I think that's pretty awesome. So as a conclusion, can you guys offer, because I know I'll be talking to the gal tomorrow, but can you offer a conclusion that's going to stick in somebody's head? What is the last thing that you would want to tell someone that's on the fence, Team Human, but I don't know.
This is Mike. I think that's an excellent question. We've all read a lot about this pandemic and the virus that causes it. We've learned a lot. It's been interesting watching people's thought processes as we've talked to you. One person says something and the next person goes, oh yes, and that makes me think of this. And we could probably go on for a couple of hours, but we won't. One of the things that I think a lot about is, first of all, we talked about the misperceptions and the myths about COVID. When I got involved in this, my mantra was clear messaging, understandable messaging, and consistent messaging. And I think that's what we've are trying to accomplish through the campaigns that we've talked about. The phrase community immunity, somebody threw out a little while ago, has become our battle cry, if you will. That's what it takes to get back to whatever normal is going to be going forward, whether it's, I don't think it's ever going to be exactly what it was before, because that's not how things work. Everybody is tired of COVID, tired of the pandemic. That's become a real thing, and I think it's one of the reasons that people are so ready to throw off the masks and start going back to the restaurants and the bars and having a good time again, because they haven't had a good time for quite a long time. My wife and I haven't seen our children or grandchildren for over a year, and it's getting old. The other thing,
They're getting old.
aren't we all? The other thing I think about a lot is people do want certainty and reassurance, and I wish we could give it to them. About 6 years ago, I had prostate cancer and surgery for that, and I'm doing fine. But one of the last absolutely certain thing I was told is, you have cancer. From here on in, am I going to get it again? We hope not, but we don't know. If I get it again, is it going to kill me? We hope not, but we don't know. There just are very few guarantees in life, really. And so what we're trying to do, what we want to accomplish, is to give everybody the best chance that they can of getting through this, getting back to normal businesses and recreation and entertainment, and improve lives again, because we've all been suffering. And the truth of the matter is, there's no absolute certainty, but the closer we get to community immunity, the fewer people there are who can get infected with the coronavirus, which after all simply wants to reproduce itself. It's its sole goal. The closer we get to that, the sooner we can return to normal and get back to life as usual. The one thing I am certain of, after working with this for so long and reading as much as I have and understanding what these folks and others have told me, is you don't want corona. You don't want COVID. You don't. If you get it, you're probably going to survive. But we all know probably by now people who didn't. I lost a good friend before Christmas. If you get it and survive, you're probably going to be okay in a while. But 10% or more of people do get this long-haul COVID syndrome. And as we said earlier, it's too soon to know for sure if we can get past that or not. It tends to go away and then come back, which is part of the devastating part of that thing. So, as I said, bottom line, you don't want this disease. And if getting a couple of shots can stop you from getting it, or stop you from giving it to someone in your family or your next door neighbor or somebody you work with, if you can get it, you should.
I would like to say thank you to Chris Smith and the rest of the group from Let's End COVID! The views and opinions expressed in InTouch are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official party or position of Backyard Broadcasting. Any content provided by our guests are of their opinion, and they are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.